welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, PrecisionHydration.com, who offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalize your hydration strategy today at PrecisionHydration.com and get a free box or tube of Precision Hydration worth up to £9.99 using the code Oxygenaddict. We're also brought to you by TeamOxygenaddict.com Triathlon Coaching, who are official coaching partners to the Outlaw Series. You get training plans, coaching support from me, monthly video coaching calls, and a private Facebook group. And we're also brought to you by FueledByCake.com, who are Helen's charity cake recipe book. There's literally dozens and dozens and dozens of amazing, delicious cake recipes in there. Some even from celebrity authors like Chrissy Wellington. So you know you're getting some of the best cake in the world. Helen's managed to shift, I think, over 40 copies of her recipe book over the Christmas period. So if you're looking for a little treat for yourself for New Year, then that would be the ideal one to jump in with. So Happy New Year, nearly everybody. Well done in making it through the Christmas period. I hope you and your families have had a fantastic time, and I hope you've managed to keep yourself moving as well in the interim. But I also hope you've managed to find some time to de-stress and to chill and to take your foot off the gas a little bit, because I think it's so important that we all manage to find a little bit of time and space just to relax over the Christmas holidays. There always seems to be so much pressure on us to do things and get out and see people and also get the training in and also fit 57 different varieties of stuff in. So I'm always really conscious this time of year that I always plan to have a little bit of downtime, and then I don't actually manage to do that. I end up managing to do more work than usual. So this year I've managed to do a little bit more chilling out than usual, which is fantastic. I'm going to kick off the show today with a big shout out and thanks to our sponsors, PrecisionHydration.com, and anyone who's in the north of England. They've got a hydration workshop that they're putting on in Chester at Pro Physio on January the 26th at 5 o'clock, and there's going to be discounted sweat testing going on between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. that day. So you need to book in for one of those slots if you want to actually have it done. So if you're someone who's suffered racing in the heat, if you felt really sick at the end of a race, if you know you're a really heavy sweater or you suspect you're a really salty sweater, the best way around this is to go and have a personal sweat test done with Precision Hydration. It's painless. It takes about 15 minutes. And at the end of it, they'll be able to tell you exactly how much you sweat per hour and also the concentration of the sweat. So for someone like me, it was absolutely mind blowing. It turns out I sweat something like 7 times more concentrated than the average human. And that was why I was really struggling when I was racing in the heat. It was why I was getting amazing amounts of cramp when I was trying to swim in the pool after doing any other kind of exercise. So really, if you're anywhere in the north of England and these things sound like they're bothering you as well, get over there and check those guys out. I also want to give a big shout out to everyone who's left a review of the show on iTunes recently. Remember that until the end of January, anyone who reviews the show on iTunes and posts a screenshot of their review to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon community Facebook page is going to get entered into a prize draw to win a copy of the fantastic new book on the Cervelo story. It's called To Make Athletes Faster by Annie DePicho. It's a beautiful coffee table book. If you're a fan of bikes in general, or specifically Cervelo ones, you're going to absolutely love it. We've got an interview with Anna and Phil White, one of the founders of Cervelo, coming up in a couple of weeks' time, which is just amazing. So yeah, if you're interested in winning a copy of that book, all you've got to do is review the show on iTunes, take that screenshot, stick it up in the Oxygenaddict Triathlon community page, and you'll get entered into the draw for that one. So I'm really thankful to everyone who's left reviews for us. We have had this one this week from SY Triclaire, who said, a great podcast, informative and amazing interviews with top triathletes, and I love the banter between Rob and Helen. Oh, thanks, Claire. Really appreciate that. And we really appreciate you guys just taking a few minutes to leave that 5-star review, because believe it or not, the iTunes search engine works massively on just their 5-star reviews. So that's the way we get seen by other people. That's the way we can grow the show. The bigger the show gets, the more chance we've got of getting bigger names on, basically. So if you can take a few minutes out of your busy day to do that on iTunes, we'd really, really super appreciate it. Okay, one other thing then, before we jump into today's interview. I just want to let you guys know that we've still got the offer running for the free Christmas present that we mentioned last week. The Christmas present from Team Oxygenaddict is a 4-week specific winter training plan block aimed specifically at 70.3 and iron distance athletes. So if you are lining up to click go on the big inspirational race of this coming year, if you already have maybe clicked on go, clicked on enter, and you've got that amazing event lined up for this year, but you're a little bit daunted by the task, then we've got the solution for you. We've got loads of different training plans suited to all different levels of athlete, no matter what your athletic history, no matter how much training you've done in the past, no matter whether you're a swimmer, biker, or runner. We've got the training plans that are proven over hundreds of people to get you into amazing shape for race day. So we're not open just yet for team memberships. We're going to be opening on the 8th of January. So this is your chance to get an actual 4-week training plan. It's not just one I've cobbled together. This is actually one of the chunks from the winter training plan that you would get if you joined the team. So it's like a chance to really try things out and see how good the plan is before you commit to doing some coaching. If you decide not to after that, that's completely fine. But I know from the hundreds of comments we've had that people who get structured coaching help really improve much faster than people who are left to their own devices. So my advice to you is give this a go. You've got nothing to lose. All you've got to do is go to oxygenaddict.com/free plan to download that, and it'll come straight into a Training Peaks account for you. You can set one up for free if you haven't got one already, and that's like an interactive training diary, so you can load your heart rate or power data into that and keep a complete track of all the workouts that you've done as well. So if you're the kind of athlete who's wondering how to get their training sorted, you're wondering how on earth you're going to fit in your training around your busy life, then we've got that solution for you. Just get over and download that plan, and it'll make everything simple. You don't have to do any thinking anymore. You just get up in the morning and do the workout that you've been given. Okay. Now, Team Oxygen Addict's going to open for new members from the 8th of January onwards. So you've got about another week yet. And then we're going to have a 2-week window of being able to get in at 2018 prices. So that's a bit of an incentive as well. So if you get in quickly for this free plan, you'll have a good couple of weeks worth of giving it an honest trial and deciding whether it makes a difference for you. I'm sure it will, before getting that option to get in at 2018 prices disappears. Okay, so that's pretty much everything from us and from our sponsors. I hope you're going to have a fantastic new year. I hope you're listening to this either out on your bike or out on a run at the moment, and you're getting some headspace away from all the craziness that is the Christmas and New Year period. So I've got an absolutely stonking and inspirational interview today for you. We've got an interview with Tim Don. Tim was Ironman world record holder at the point where he was out on a training ride a week before Kona and got T-boned by a car, smashed up all manner of different bones around his body, and it was touch and go for him for a while. So this guy ends up with, well, I'm not going to spoil it, it's the most amazing story of coming back and overcoming adversity. So this guy he should need no introduction, but if you've not heard this before, it's incredible and mind-blowing. So have a listen to this, and we will see you again with our usual show with Helen and I kicking off as of from next week. All right, everyone, have a great, safe training and racing week. We'll see you again soon. Cheers. All right, so Tim, welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you on, man. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay, thank you. The sun's shining in Colorado. It's 9 a.m. and I've got my first session under the belt, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah, you just telling me you've just done a track session before 9 a.m., which I think has got to be worth double points, right?
Oh yeah, I take off 2 seconds per rep, just for that time difference. So
it takes me at my age, man. It takes me about an hour to think about doing any running in the morning before my Achilles let me get out the door. So it's great you can do fast running first thing.
Oh no, well, there's a group of us. Julie Divins, who coaches me with Matt Bottrell. She obviously lives in Colorado, so there's about five guys and 3 girls running. So it's a nice little group we've got going here.
Great
so
stuff.
That's good.
Hey, well, listen, the big reason that I wanted to get you on around this time was obviously you've got this incredible story of a comeback from a broken neck that happened in a car crash when a car hit you when you were riding your bike out in Kona. And your team have put an amazing video together, which I've seen about 3/4 of it, I think. The draft of it that I saw ends just before you go to do the run at the end. So I haven't seen like the finale of it, but I've got to say the film itself is absolutely amazing, man. I had tears in my eyes 3 separate times when I was watching it. And that wasn't even the times when you were having the surgeries done. So I wanted to get you on, and I know everybody's read your story and heard your story in brief in the press, and it's basically, Tim was in this crash. He got hit by a car. He broke his neck. He's had this rehab, and now he's making a comeback, which is amazing in itself. But I think the film does an incredible story of showing exactly what you've gone through in that intervening time. And there's a lot of extremely intimate footage in it, isn't there, that was taken almost pretty much right from you being taken out of the ambulance. So, I mean, tell us the story. Talk us through it. First up, you're 2 days out from the Ironman World Championships. Was it 2 days or 3 days out?
Wednesday, so yeah, I guess 3 days out. Yeah.
So pretty much last ride before the race, and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I was riding out. I rode out easy from the hotel on the Alley Drive. Rode up past the swimming pool, out on the Queen K, in the cycle lane, and about 4 or 5 kilometers out of town on the Queen K, there's a petrol station. And I was right, and it was to my right, and I'm on the right side of the road because in the US. And a car coming towards me basically turned in front of me to go to the petrol station, and the driver either didn't see me, thought I was going slower or quicker than I actually was. I wasn't on my aero bars. I fully locked my rear wheel, and it was the first time I put my new race tires on, my new latex tubes, my I had my aero helmet on, testing all the equipment. I remember actually locking my rear wheel to try and stop. And then, the next thing I remember was about 25 minutes later when I came to, and I got T-boned. I went straight into the side of him and stopped dead. And obviously, I hardly had any road rash, but my right shoulder was massively swollen, and obviously I'd hit my head. And later on, we found out to the extent of how hard I'd actually hit the car.
Yeah, that's it's terrifying. There's a photograph, isn't there, of just in the aftermath of it happening, and you can see your bikes and bits on the floor, and it's just horrendous. And I was watching it firstly, sort of as a cyclist. I was completely in that, God, this could happen to any one of us mindset. This is going to be a kind of personal question, I guess, but how did you feel when you came round? Were you aware of what had happened? Can you remember much from that time?
I can remember, bits and bobs in the initial aftermath. I remember the car was white. I remember locking up, hitting him. And then when I came to, I was sore, and I was like, oh no. And I just thought, oh no, I've broken my collarbone because my right shoulder was sore. But I felt it, and I've got quite protruding collarbones, and there wasn't a crack. And I thought, oh, hopefully I've just got whiplash. Oh no, my bike!
Yeah.
Like we all love our bikes. And then I was lucky that one of the first people to the scene was a guy who was out there watching from Australia, and he was a doctor. So he made sure, because I was laying in the middle of the road, when they moved me, to the side of the road, he made sure that my, any head collision, that my neck was stable. And then we waited for the ambulance. But I wasn't in that moment. I was I was actually in and out of consciousness for about another 40 minutes. It wasn't until I was really in hospital that I kind of I was with it, because they'd given me a drip. I think it was just the shock of the accident. I remember vaguely in the ambulance, they were trying to get a drip in my arm, and they couldn't find a vein, and I was getting annoyed with them. And then I remember waking up in hospital. Then I remember waking up in having an MRI scan. So yeah, I think I'd obviously hit my head pretty hard and had some sort of severe concussion as well.
And at what point then did you get told that you'd basically fractured vertebrae in your neck?
Not for a while. They had a portable X-ray machine, so they came and X-rayed my shoulder and said, "Oh, that's not broken." So I was like, "Oh, brilliant!" And I was still I think it's called a C collar, like a very aggressive neck collar on, just for precaution. And I was like, "Oh, brilliant! I've just got whiplash. I think I can still race." I specialised with air, so I was thinking, "Oh, they can sort me out a bike. I might struggle in the swim a little bit, but no, this is all good." And then I had a CAT scan on my brain, just because they wanted to make sure, with any head-on collision, and they said, well, I wouldn't say everything was fine, but it was the same. it was passable. And then I had an MRI scan, and I remember going in for the MRI scan, and a nurse would hold my head, some on my hips and some on my ankles, and they would slide me onto the MRI table. And you're in there and you've got the headphones on, and they say, okay, we're done now, we're coming in to get you. And I'm like, yeah, no worries, that's fine. Then I remember them coming in, and there were like 8 nurses that came in, and I was like, oh, hello, what's going on here? And someone had my ankles, someone had my shins, someone had my knees, someone had my thighs, someone had, they were being a lot more careful. I'm not saying they weren't careful, and obviously I said, oh, what's wrong? No, nothing. No, you have to wait to see what the doctor says, etc. And then I realized that there was something pretty severe, because they were, even walking, or I wasn't walking, sorry, I was laying on the bed being pushed down the corridor to the accident and emergency room. It wasn't just one person pushing me. There were 2 people at the front making sure no one banged the bed. And then I realized, and then I think Franco was there, and Julie, Franco's my manager, and Julie and my good friend Pat. And they, I think they, the nurses must have said, oh, sugar, this isn't good. Because when they came in, there was definitely a mood change from everyone being, oh, don't worry, to, holy sugar, we don't know the extent, but you've kind of broken your neck. And then the doctor came in and said, yeah, you've broken your neck in C2. And I always thought C2, your neck was kind of your neck, but C2 is actually in line with your top lip. So it's really high up. And obviously they were worried that it was so close to the brain that you've got lots of tiny blood vessels. So they were worried about getting a small blood clot and then it getting forced into the brain. And then it got quite serious.
Yeah. Oh man, you said it. So it sounds like there's this. I mean, I even saw you put a video out on Twitter, didn't you, where you were saying, "Oh, I can't believe I'm practicing my new aero position for the race," and we were like, "Wow, this guy's got a great sense of humor and he's really jolly." And I guess at this point is when you're starting to realize things are much more serious than we at first thought they were.
Well, I think, up until kind of then, I hadn't taken any painkillers. I'd only been on a saline drip because I still wanted to race, and I was in a lot of pain. But it was at that moment when they told me I had a broken neck, I thought, oh, I can't take this any longer. Yeah, give me the morphine.
Yeah.
So when I made that video, I was under the influence of morphine, I will be honest.
All right, so listen,
yeah.
I was just going to say, would you mind talking us through, I know in the film it says you're given 3 options of a way to look after your neck, and you go with the halo, which is where the title of your film comes from, The Man with the Halo. That thing just looks, I mean, to give it some context, I was telling my 6-year-old son that I was about to interview you, and I showed him a picture of you, and he was like, I told him the whole story, and then just before we were walking back from school with him, and he shouted to his friend, oh, I can't come and see you, my dad's got to go and interview somebody who's got bolts in his head. And all the 6-year-old friends were like, wow. I mean, yeah, really, the contraption itself does look medieval, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is medieval.
There's no question.
Yeah, and I'm like, come on. Well, joking with the doctors once it was on, I was like, surely there must be a modern version of this that isn't as intrusive. And they said, well, that's the fusion. So they said I could have a fusion where they get 2 titanium bolts and they kind of like, I guess, fuse bolt C1 and C2 together. But that would really eliminate 50% of my movement, turning right and left and up and down. And that also puts more stress on C3, C4, C5.
Yeah.
So if you have that operation, there's a good chance within 10 to 15 years that you need to have another fusion. And I was lucky that Dr. V, the doctor that saw me, he's done Kona as an age grouper. He's actually doing Alaska Man this year, the Ironman in Alaska. He totally understands.
Oh, wow.
What I want to do. When I say I do a bit of training, he knows what a bit of training is, etc., etc. And he said, look, as you know, literally the halo's the only way. It's a plaster cast for your neck. You could have a neck brace on, but you're going to move it. And they weren't so worried about the calcification of the bone and the fracture healing. They were more worried about the stability of the curvature in my spine and also the gaps between my vertebrae. Even every 3 weeks after the accident, I had to go back for checkups and get CAT scans, get X-rays, and they kept on. Even like 6 weeks, they're going, "Have you had any numbness in your feet, any pins and needles? have you lost bladder control? All the signs that, something's not right with, movement of your lower limbs. But yeah, with the halo, it really does lock it in place. I mean, to give you an example, when you're tightening your seat post up, you're tightening your Allen key to about 4 to 6 Newton meters. Is that about right?
Yeah.
So they had to tighten the 4 screws into my head up to 8 Newton meters.
Oh, crikey.
So even tighter than you do your seat post. And they kept on coming loose when I was in the gym. So I had to have them retightened. And initially they gave me a local, but every time they retightened them, they couldn't give me any pain meds. And one of them and every time they retighten them, they go deeper into my skull. Oh. So in December, I actually had to have a CAT scan, not on my neck, but on my screws, because they were worried that if they tightened it anymore, it was going to puncture my skull and go into my brain, which it was going to do. So they had to drill a 5th hole into my head in December. So that wasn't fun. And literally they tee it up, they get an Allen key, and it's a big titanium bolt with a big point on the end, and they just tighten it up with an Allen key and with a torque wrench until it hits 8 Newton meters. I wouldn't recommend it.
So wait, let's just back up here and explain to anyone who haven't seen the photos of this. The halo is it's like a metal circle that goes around the front of your forehead, and then it's affixed by sort of 4 posts down to your shoulders, isn't it? And then that metal part itself is what's being screwed into your skull. And the thing that really got me, there's an amazing bit in the film where I think it's actually where they're taking it off at the end, and I could barely watch him as the guys, he was being as gentle as he could, and you could tell everyone in the room was wincing as he was doing it, and you were kind of going, oh no, now one's a little bit tighter than it. It just looked agonizing.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, the brace goes right down to my belly button. So
did it really? Did it go that far?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big. It's all carbon and titanium because it couldn't be magnetic because I had to go in the MRI and CAT scans.
Right.
So any kind of pressure, any movement of the brace, especially in the first 3 weeks. I mean, I was on like a codeine-based drug initially, and it wasn't so much the neck, it was more the screws that were painful, and obviously they're open wounds, and my wife had to clean them 2 to 3 times a day with hydrogen peroxide just to get all the gunk and swelling, and every time they came loose, my forehead would swell up like with all this fluid, because there's a foreign body moving in your skull. And I mean, I'm not just saying this. Knowing what I know, no way would I have another halo.
Really? Well, that's interesting. I was going to say, if having been through it, would you choose it again?
No.
Wow.
No way. I mean, yeah.
I mean, you do get a sense from watching. Yeah, you do get a sense from watching the video, and as I said earlier on, I can't remember whether I said this on air or whether we chatted beforehand. I had properly had tears in my eyes 3 times watching the film, and one of them was the bit where your wife's washing your hair with you kind of bent over the bath, and then it shows her cleaning the screws. Now it's just the most moving scene. You look like you're in so much pain, and she's being so gentle with the taking care of you. It's just it really got me.
There were definitely times when she was a bit rough, when she was fed up with me. No, but I mean, it affected our whole lives for 3 months. I mean, I've got a 3-year-old son who's a nutter, and I've got a 7-year-old daughter, and Kelly, my wife, became a single parent, and she had to look after me because I couldn't pick them up. I couldn't, I couldn't do bath time. I couldn't drive, and on top of that, I was sleeping in a chair downstairs because I couldn't lay down because of the pressure of the screws into my skull. It really was, a tough time for everyone,
Well, how much sleep did you manage to get sitting up in a chair?
I would say the first 3 weeks, the longest I slept was probably 90 minutes without waking up because I couldn't lean back. So I had to lock my arms in it was like a it was like a reading chair, so I had to lock my arms in and lean forward, and literally I couldn't and also I couldn't move my jaw. Well, I can move my jaw, but I can't move my head at all. So your jaw just, whenever you fall asleep upright, my jaw just came down. So I was dribbling, my mouth was super dry. And that's with taking heavy codeine. They also gave me like a muscle relaxant to try and relax me, but it didn't agree with me. So then I started to throw up. And I remember one night I was throwing up, but when you throw up, you have that gag, your head does that jolt movement. And obviously I could not do that, but your body automatically does. So every time I did that, these screws are just digging further into my head. And I was like, I almost went into the garage to get an Allen key to take it off there and then.
Oh, man. Talking to you has made me realize that, I mean, the film itself is incredible and it's very moving, and it leaves you in no doubt of, well, I was going to say it leaves you in no doubt of what you went through, but actually it turns out there's a lot of stuff that you went through that obviously hasn't made the cut, right?
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, the filmmaker, he's an English guy, super nice guy. He would come every 2 to 3 weeks for 2 to 3 days, and whatever I was doing, I'd email him before that I was doing, and he would just basically follow myself, my wife, and my family around. So yeah, no, for sure, he did. They didn't get everything, but yeah, I mean,
there's some really good stuff in there, isn't there? And listen, the next thing I want to ask you about is, and it's almost spoiling it for people who haven't seen it yet, but how long was it before you went back into the gym? For people who haven't seen it,
it was about 4 weeks. I went back into the gym, and I did. Once I was off, I didn't want to go in while I was on the codeine, because then you probably think you're a hero and blooming don't do too much. But yeah, it was about 4 weeks. But literally, the first time I went, John Dennis, my physio who lives in Newcastle, he flew over to kind of like assess me. And we just went in the gym, and I did 5 minutes on an exercise bike at like 75, 80 watts. And I felt like king of the world, just being able to do something. And then we kind of decided that, if I was adamant, I'm 40 years old now. I'm no spring chicken, but I don't, I'm going to retire in hopefully 2-3 years, but you want to kind of retire on your own terms. And I was determined that I wanted to get back and race just to race. And once we decided that, we thought, well, we can't do anything with the neck, but this is the longest time I'd ever had off of my body, ever in the whole 40 years of my life. So we said, well, let's work on everything we can. If, when you run, what's my weak link? My calves. Okay, let's work on calf strength. Let's work on shoulder mobility so you don't get tendonitis from swimming. So I started off doing very, very basic calf raises, very, very basic band work, and slowly we could build that up. Then I needed to get massage, so I'd see Marcus, my masseur, and he was kind of like managed to get his hand under the brace in my lower back and behind my shoulders to loosen me off. But yeah, I think for me, as I think that's the reason the screws were coming loose. But I had to do it. I just needed that release.
No,
endorphin release.
I can completely relate. It's on the one hand you're in all this pain, but on the other hand you're going to go completely nuts if you don't get to do something right. But
absolutely,
yeah. So fast forward to the point where the halo actually comes off. How long did you have it fixed to you for?
So screwed in for 3 months and 1 day. And then when that came off, I had what's called an Aspen collar and a Philadelphia collar. So I had a collar on. They're quite aggressive collars, and the one I used when I trained kind of like cupped my chin, and it was made out of like kickboard material, like pool boy, that foam. Yeah. So it was waterproof. And then I had one that was a bit softer for normal day to day. And then I had those collars on for another 5 weeks. And then after that, I had another 2 weeks with a foam collar, just like you can probably go to Boots and buy a 20-pound, tube sock collar, just to remind me that, I'm still recovering. And then with those collars, I could train. So about 3 days after the halo came off, I jumped on not a I jumped on my turbo, and I could ride on Zwift and stuff. But again, all very easy, just getting the body moving. And it was probably about 3.5 weeks after the halo came off, I jumped on the Alto G and did like 30-second run, 30-second walk. And I was doing lots of walking, even with the halo. Twice a week, I was doing an hour to an hour and a half walk just along the river in Boulder. Just, I was always doing it with a friend, just chatting and just getting out and about for my sanity again.
Yeah.
And then from the Alto G, we went to a treadmill, walking, running. Then we went outside. Then we did a bit more. And, by the time the collars came off, I was probably running only 30 kilometers a week, but I was able to run outside. Which was good.
And so talk us through how you hatched this plan to run the Boston Marathon. What was the inspiration behind that?
Winning it. No, no, I don't know. I mean, most of us, we love putting on race numbers, and, I really felt I wanted to do something, and I realized I wouldn't be doing a competitive triathlon for a long time. And the opportunity came up through On, my shoe sponsor, would I be interested in doing Boston Marathon? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And I hadn't told Julie then or Matt. So I told them, yeah, I'll definitely do it. And then, about 6 weeks before, I said, oh, yeah, no, the opportunities come up. And they were like, yeah, no, that's fine, but you're not going to run it. You're going to kind of like run, walk. And I said, yeah, well, we'll see how we go. That's how the plan came up. And then as I got closer, about 3.5 weeks before, I got really ill and had to spend probably about 6 days in bed and missed 9 days off training. The flu was going around all the schools, and I caught it off the kids. But no, I mean, leading up to the race, I did 3 weeks of, I think, 70 kilometers. And my longest run was about 28 kilometers. But when I run long, I do run at 2,600 meters above sea level. So because I do go super high. But yeah, literally every run I was doing, I was kind of getting fitter. So everyone going, you're doing your longest run the week before? And I'm going, trust me, I need the run to get through the race.
no time for a taper. There's nothing to taper from.
No.
And at what point did you share with Julie and Matt, your coaches, that you were going to not walk, jog, run and wave at the crowds, but you were actually going to try and run 250?
Well, I didn't tell them that. I told them I was going to try and run around 3 hours, but I was going to make a decision at about 25, 26 kilometers, for the last bit, whether I was going to back off. I didn't want to, and I honestly, I didn't want to finish really like not
destroyed.
Dead, but yes, yeah. Running fresh, hard is a lot harder than running an ITU race or an Ironman. It's harder on your muscles, on your joints. And, I was going to France with Matt to do a bike block, and I didn't want to turn up walking downstairs backwards. So, Julie she rode a mountain bike on a 10K run, and she says, yeah, well, maybe you should, 3 hours is quite optimistic. And I said, yeah, no. And I did a build run with her, and she was like, oh, wow, you're moving okay. You're not holding your body as much. The physio again, I was getting physio 3 times a week and a massage once a week. Plus I was still in the gym 3 times a week, doing all my stretches and self-massage and so forth. And then I did an interview for the New York Times, and the lady was super cool. She was a runner herself. She came out to Boulder, and I went for a run with her and whatnot. And she wanted to go over the article while she was in New York. She didn't want any fake news, didn't want to fax and so forth. So, and she said, and what time are you hoping to run? And I said, I would love to run 3 hours. Oh my gosh, if I could run 250, I would be over the moon. And that was, I told her 3 hours. And then I read online, like 4 days before the race, this man wants to run 250. Get a text from Julie. Kelly's like, I thought you wanted to run 3 hours. And I said, well, I do. And all of a sudden, everyone's going, oh, you want to run 250? And I'm going, oh my gosh. And then, of course, I get to Boston. The day before the race, it starts to snow. It's a point-to-point race with slightly net downhill, especially the first 15 kilometers. But we had a headwind with, I wouldn't say gale force at all, but we had a strong headwind with lashing rain. It was -1, -2 with the wind chill factor. it's a 10 a.m. start, but I had to get a bus at 6:30 to the race start and wait up the start line. So it was a real kind of like, oh my gosh, this isn't like VIP, like triathlon. There's no tent with heaters and so forth. So yeah,
so you really got put through it in order to get the time. It was biblical day, wasn't it?
Oh, I mean, yeah. If you look at the pros, I mean, I think the pro women was one in 2:38, and she's a 2:20 something runner. The men, 14 of the 25 pro men dropped out through hypothermia, being too cold, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to go out a bit quick, to get warm, and I knew it was downhill. So I got to 25 kilometers and I was on for a 2:40. And I thought, don't be stupid. So then the actual from 25k home, I was running 220k pace. Sorry, not 220, 420 kilometer pace. And that slowly was dropping me to 240, 250, 249. But I knew I couldn't, So that was how kind of like the plan was hatched. And yeah, that's, I guess, how I ran. And I think the hills come later in the race. So I was able to save my legs, not running too hard up or down the hills as well.
Nice. So it sounds like, I mean, it's an incredible story to go from to where you were, all this pain that you've been through in your rehab. And now obviously it would be easy for us to sit here and go, well, Tim's healed now. He's run a 250 marathon. He must be feeling great again. Just the other week, we had Will Clark on talking about his recovery from a broken collarbone. And he sort of stressed how it was like an everyday thing in it, well, every hour in his head. Am I ever going to be able to get back swimming again? It must be like 10 times that for you.
Probably 12 times compared to Will. No, I mean, at the moment, I cannot swim. When I swim, I cannot breathe to my right. Physically, it's impossible because the range of motion is just not there. I still have physio. I'm still waking up two times a night with a tight back, tight shoulders. After every swim, I need to go and do self-massage and get on the foam roller. If not, if I look in the mirror, my right shoulder's higher than my left. I get lots of kind of sciatica, nerve pain over the skull of the right side of the back, right side of my head, just when the muscles get tight. I mean, my hips lock up a lot easier just because, the whole thoracic part of my spine is very tight as well. And it's a case of breaking down the scar tissue in the neck, getting the mobility, being able to manipulate my neck. We've only been able to do that once to the right ever since breaking my neck, just because it's just too locked and jammed. There's too much going on there. I mean, in one physio session, I blacked out while she was doing some mobilizations of my neck. Really? So no, for me, I'm still swimming with the snorkel, most swims, just because I can't breathe properly. And after long runs and long rides, my neck is not, I'm still taking ibuprofen for pain and things like that. Yeah. So I'm a long way from racing, unfortunately, at the moment.
That's one of the things that comes through in that scene where, is it John, your physio, who's working on you, and he's kind of working your back and he's working your you just saying then that you blacked out. I actually couldn't watch the screen as he was doing that to you, because you hear the word physiotherapy, but it looks like you're being beaten, quite frankly, by the guy and paying for the privilege.
What was I thinking?
but that level of determination that you've got to come back from this and to race again, what is it that drives you to do that, do you think, Tim?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's a driving force. It's just, why not? Why? That's what I do. That's what I love. The sport's given me so much, and I'm willing. I believe if I can race an Ironman again, I can definitely be competitive. I know my legs and my arms are willing. We just need to sort the blooming neck out. As I say, I really, I want to finish my career on my term. And not on some stupid driver not paying attention. And I would rather try and fail than not even try at all. And I think, so many, especially, now it's so public. So many people have put so much into my rehabilitation, and even looking back, so many people have put so much into my career at various stages, whether it's been the federation, coaches, sponsors, that, I just want to stand on that start line and just know I've done everything possible, like everyone who races, whether you're trying to qualify for Kona as an amateur, whether it's your first race, you're racing yourself as much as you're racing the next person. And yeah, for me, it's definitely put perspective of that. And for me, I there's no driving force. It's just what I love doing, what I want to do. And I don't know.
Well, I can't think of a better place to leave it than that, Tim. Thank you so much for spending the time for talking to us. You're a total inspiration. I think when this film comes out, we're going to try and time the release of this interview so it comes out just as your film's released. So I encourage everybody to watch it. And honestly, we wish you all the best. And I hope so much that we get to see you racing again and you get to do what you love pain-free again.
It's never pain-free.
Well,
it's an Ironman, come on. No, I really appreciate that. No, thank you very much.